All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and it is Wednesday. You know what that means. Wednesday Wisdom. We are reading from Dr. Wayne W. Dyer's Wisdom of the Ages, 60 Days to Enlightenment. But if you can reach 60 days to enlightenment, ladies and gentlemen, if you can become enlightened in 60 days, then I think you will be the greatest master there ever was. Because I'm not sure any of the great masters that we've learned about throughout this long series. Well, I'm not going to say long, this great series, and the great series of living the wisdom of the Tao, which is what we do on Tuesdays, which is what we did yesterday. And if you haven't joined us for those, I'd like to offer you an invitation to join us on Tuesdays. And today, Wednesdays, we are getting into Wisdom of the Ages. And today, Wayne Dyer writes about a Quaker devoted to social causes and reform. John Greenleaf Whittier was a popular New England poet. After the Civil War, his poetry emphasized religion, nature, and New England life. That must have been nice, a little bit of 1800s New England life. But John Greenleaf Whittier, he must have been the wittiest person there was. I had to. I believe that's how it's pronounced. His last name is spelled Whittier, Whittier. He lived 1807 to 1892. See that time period again. A lot of these poets and authors in this book that Wayne Dyer references come from that time period. Remember, Henry David Thoreau was 1817 to 1862. Elizabeth Browning, 1806 to 1860. And, you know, the list just goes on, ladies and gentlemen. But Wayne Dyer chooses to title this chapter today, Regrets. And when I first seen that, I was kind of like, dang it. Because I usually don't like these darker topics. I prefer to go into more of a, spiritual, mystical, positivity, talking about perfection and, enthusiasm and reverence for nature and all these kinds of things. And so I really have no idea where this one's going to go, ladies and gentlemen. And I really have no previous references of any poetry from John Whittier, John Greenleaf. But, ladies and gentlemen, never has any one of these been bad. And I know that that would be impossible because it's a Wayne Dyer production referencing great poetry from the 1800s. I mean, how could we possibly go wrong with that? So the poem Wayne Dyer references here today, or the piece from a poem, says from Maud Mueller, Maud-Muller, Maud Mueller. And again, the chapter is titled Regrets, and we'll just dive right into this and see where this takes us, ladies and gentlemen, because every one of these has been great wisdom of the ages. And so that we can, find a way in our lives to reach a higher quality of life, because so many of us can use that and can use that in sharing it to others and, helping people around us have a higher quality of life. The poem begins, alas for maiden, alas for judge, for rich ripener and household drudge. God pity them both, and pity us all, who vainly the dreams of youth recall. For all sad words of tongue or pen, the saddest are these, it might have been. Ooh, I like where this is going. All well, for us all some sweet hope lies, deeply buried from human eyes, and the hereafter angels may roll the stone from its grave away. John Greenleaf Whittier. Fantastic. That one's, see, this is already going a lot better than I expected. See, sometimes regrets is a rough topic. But that point there, that it's like, for all the sad words of tongue or pen, the saddest of these are, it might have been, or I wish I would have, Or, the idea of not going after life and chasing it down and tackling it when you have the opportunity, because so much of us so often hold ourselves back out of some self-created fear or worry. And we've talked about this in previous videos. Now let's dive in to what Wayne Dyer has to say here about regrets in this above passage from John Whittier. Wayne Dyer begins, the above quoted passage is the final stanza. See, that's the word I was looking for, stanza. The final stanza in a 15-stanza poem titled Maud Mueller, written by Whittier, a prolific and sensitive 19th century American poet. I urge you to read and reread, Wayne Dyer says, the entire poem, which tells a story that has a profound message for everyone who has the courage to accept this sage advice. The poem opens with Maud Mueller, a beautiful young maiden, raking hay in a meadow, looking up and seeing a handsome judge on a horse, riding toward her. Her heart beats intensely, and she speaks to the judge while giving him a drink of water from her tin cup. Her mind races at the thought of what it would be like to be with the kind, sensitive man who spoke to her of the grass and of the flowers and of the trees, of the singing birds and the humming bees. She forgot the tattered clothes she wore and her unkempt appearance and allowed herself to fantasize about her dreams, a wish that she hardly dared to own for something better than she had known. This is a good poem, and we're only just getting pieces of it. As the judge rode away, her heartfelt thought was, me, that I, the judge's bride might be. But it was not to be. Instead, she married a man who brought her sorrow and pain. As Whittier writes it, a manly form at her side she saw, and joy was duty, and love was law. Joy should not be a duty, and love should not be a law. Then she took up the burden of her life again, saying only, it might have been. This is a good one, ladies and gentlemen. If you're getting value, let me know what you think in the comments section below. Wayne Dyer continues, the poem describes the young, handsome judge who rode off that day with a deep longing in his heart, but one that he was unwilling to fulfill. I think he means she there. The woman had the maiden had the deep longing in her heart. It's one that she was unwilling to fulfill, or maybe it was the judge at the same time. Maybe it was both of them. Interesting. Afraid to jeopardize his position in life. Unable to act on his feelings, because remember the young maiden had tattered clothes and she was, sweeping up the hay. And he's out here going to work, being a judge and all kinds of, there's these different statuses that we hold ourselves to with the ego mind that society has created for us, the labels, the mask, the persona, And this is a fascinating way of putting this kind of regrets. Would she were mine, and today I, like her, a harvester of hay, no doubtful balance of rights and wrongs, nor weary layers with endless tongue. And so he left his heartfelt longings and pursued a life that had been arranged for him by the decisions of others. But he thought of his sisters, proud and cold, and his mother, vain and rank and gold, vain of her rank and gold. So closing his heart, the judge rode on, and Maud was left in the field alone. Whittier then tells of how the judge married someone of his own rank and position, and how he daydreamed of his soul connection back in the field, Oft when the wine in his glass was red, he longed for the wayside well instead. Hoo-hoo! And the proud man sighed with a secret pain, ah, that I were free again, free as when I rode that day, where the barefoot maiden raked her hay. As the story of Maud and the judge comes to its poetic conclusion, Wayne Dyer continues, the final verse builds to an emotionally charged conclusion. The two lines that Whittier is most remembered for are words that I kept in large letters on my bulletin board for my students to read when I was a school counselor many years ago. They're words that today I remind my children to internalize when they fear making a mistake. And see, here's where the lesson is coming, ladies and gentlemen. Or when his children avoid taking a risk by remaining silent. These are the words to live by, written by a brilliant poet more than a century ago, coming to us today, ladies and gentlemen. For all sad words of tongue and pen, the saddest are these, it might have been. And see, indeed, that was the very line that I thought stood out to me the most. Indeed, it might have been, is the lament of the unfulfilled dreams. There's another story that Wayne Dyer talks about. I'm not sure if he'll mention it here in this last page that we're going through, but it was about a man on, this really old, he was like a super successful doctor or something. And he was very well off his entire life. And he's laying there at the end of his life. And he says, what if it was all wrong? What if everything I thought I did that I had to do was wrong? And it's, I think it's about this idea of the leaving, your dreams or your desires, not advancing confidently in the direction of your dreams and desires, and leaving them behind. It's like all the, remember? It was just the last one we read. Herman Melville. The insular Tahiti, and all the horrors of a half-lived life. The half-lived life, this is from the previous chapter, the half-lived life is lived exclusively in the trappings and the structures that are the outer world. See, so often we get trapped in the structures and the, societal mindsets and who we're supposed to be and what our status is, that we never go after our dreams and our insular Tahiti, whatever it is, and wherever that may be, ladies and gentlemen. And so this is 2 lessons in a row, probably 3, because the next chapter is called Fear and Risk Taking, which will go perfectly into this whole, series that we're doing here. And it's awesome that Wayne Dyer put these in such an order that you go from, things like nature and imagination, and he's got it worked out well. So each of these topics flow through each other from different authors' perspectives, and that's why I suggest that you get this for yourself, or at least watch the rest of this series, ladies and gentlemen, because this is fantastic wisdom of the ages, and I have this link below in the description box. If you're getting value, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Ah, the proud man sighed. Ah, that I were free again. But Wayne Dyer says, if I can find my spot again, these are the words to live by, written by a brilliant poet more than a century ago. For of all sad words of tongue and pen, the saddest are these, it might have been. Does the kitty agree? Meow? Do you like this poem, kitty? Don't mind the kitty, ladies and gentlemen. It might have been. Indeed, it might have been, is the lament of the unfulfilled dreamers, the unfulfilled dream, or of the unfulfilled dreamers who ponder the past with regret over what they failed to say or do because they feared the consequences. And, so many of us do that throughout all of our lives. And I think it's something that we should learn to move past so that we don't have to say, it might have been, In my own life, Wayne Dyer says, I have made many mistakes, but I can honestly say that I have no regrets today regarding anything I've done. Absolutely none. And see, that's confusing. I would say I have regrets, but at the same time, I wouldn't change anything, knowing that it would change where I am now. So in that sense, I have no regrets. And I think most of us can probably say that. Would you change anything knowing that it would change where you are now, ladies and gentlemen? And do you like where you are now? If not, then maybe you should continue researching the wisdom of the ages and the wisdom of the Tao and begin trying to live this wisdom so that we can have a higher quality of life, so that we can make happiness the way, ladies and gentlemen. And then our destinations will always be fantastic because we'll have enjoyed the whole journey. Now, I'm rambling again. Yes, there are the things I said that I wouldn't say today, Wayne Dyer continues, and I think this is what I was just getting at. Yes, there were people I heard along the way, and today I've learned from those behaviors. Yes, I made some bad investments and written some horrible words, consumed some toxic substances, and lost some competitive contests, and even been lost in my own self-importance far too frequently in my past. But as I said, I have no regrets about anything I've done. I've worked at not repeating those blunders, and I know I cannot undo the past. Yet I am not free of regrets. My own regrets are in what I didn't do. Fascinating. At a 20-year high school reunion, I met a woman whom I absolutely adored when I was a 17-year-old boy. I finally had the courage to tell her how I felt 2 decades later. She responded, I always liked you and would have given anything if you would have called and asked for a date. And I was floored by my regret, Wayne Dyer says. At 17, I trembled with the fear of thoughts of being rejected or appearing foolish. I imagined she was way too cool to go out with me, and consequently, I allowed the opportunity to pass. If you feel something in your heart and know it resonates within you as something you should try, yet you hold back out of fear, you set yourself up for regret. See, there's the real key component, is fear. And that's why next week's Wednesday Wisdom will be about fear and risk-taking. And so, make no mistake about it, Wayne Dyer says, regret is an appalling waste of energy. And see, this is also the key point of this lesson. Regretting something and spending time, spending time not now is a waste of energy that you have now. No matter how much energy you do have, and most of us have a limited amount of energy. And so you don't want to use up your limited amount of energy that you have each day on, worrying about the future or stressing about the past. You need to be flowing in the now. That's where we can be most efficient. Now, I'm not saying you don't plan and, learn from the past. That's wisdom. But it's important to not spend our energy constantly regretting. It's an appalling waste of energy, Wayne Dyer continues. You cannot build on it. You cannot grow from it. And all you can do is wallow in frustration. So whatever you feel deeply about but fail to act on will cause you regret. The words you didn't say or fear of being ridiculed, the action you failed to take for fear of failing, or the trip you didn't take for fear of being alone, are the stars that led one step at a time. Interesting. To the attic of despair in your later years. As Whittier puts it so succinctly, God pity them both, and pity us all, who vainly the dreams of youth recall. You undoubtedly will encounter some disapproval. Some results you produce will not always be to your liking. You will experience ridicule in your life and all sorts of these kinds of things because it's natural. But you will not know regret if you speak up or take action. But you will know, no matter what, is a sense of your own spiritual destiny. And that's what we're here to discover, ladies and gentlemen, is the great way. In our way. As Jesus put it, no man having put his hand to the plan and looking back is fit for the kingdom of heaven. What? What? Now you got to remember, see, the kingdom of heaven is like all of creation. So there is no separate, like, stuff to put. I'll leave that up to your own individual interpretation. But you just have to remember that when we're researching the Tao and, the great universal organizing intelligence, the great divine spirit, great spirit, as Native Americans call it, we don't want to anthropomorphize or make these things into people. And, when the kingdom of heaven is talked about, make this into some place with fancy gates. You know what I mean? So we got to go beyond that, ladies and gentlemen. Because the great master and all the great masters were talking about something more than just human concepts. So having said that, no man having put his hand to the plan and looking back is fit. That's a confusing one. To practice this no regrets advice, Wayne Dyer continues, from Whittier's classic poem. Oh man, having put his hand to the plan and looking back. So it's like, I don't know. That one went a few directions. Leave me a comment and let me know what you think about that one. It might mean, like, when you go to do something, don't have the worry and don't have the regret, like, stop wondering if it worked out right. But anyways, to practice this no regrets advice from Whittier's classic poem of Maud Mueller and the Judge, consider the following. Visualize yourself as an older person looking back on yourself today, no matter how old you are, ladies and gentlemen. Visualize yourself as an older person looking back on yourself today. How do you want to feel then? Full of regret or satisfied that you did what your heart advised you to do? Whatever that may be, I'll add, however minuscule or grandiose it may be. Did you do what your heart advised you to do? Instead of asking yourself, this is number 2, what everyone else's opinion is going to be and how your action will be perceived by others, ask yourself, how do I want my life to be lived? Yes, that's so important to me. I didn't get it by this lesson, but I got it by Wayne Dyer in one of his speeches. He talks for an hour about, going beyond the opinions of others. It was like the 3 things of the self-actualizing individual from Emerson or Maslow or something like that. And it's like you become independent of the good opinion of other people. You have no investment over power over others. And I, for some reason, always forget the 3rd one. Lately, anyways. Let us continue, ladies and gentlemen. Instead of asking yourself what everybody else's opinion is, ask yourself, how do I want my life to be lived? And then proceed and take a small risk in the direction of that new action, or take a small risk in the action of that new direction. It said the latter, but number 3, contemplate how you are going to feel in advance. And see, this is a real spiritual manifesting principle, is contemplate and focus on how you want to feel and how you are going to feel in advance. First, imagine taking the potentially regret-producing path of inaction. Then imagine what the very best outcome would be were you to take this risk. By picturing both scenarios in advance, you can avoid the regret of what might have been. Wow, ladies and gentlemen. See, that is one of those deeper, tougher subjects, but I feel like that poem was a fun and nice one to go through. It gives it a, all-encompassing perspective to try to see what was being said there. That's one of those topics that I don't normally go into because it makes people think of maybe not so great things, but see, that's key for me. See, that's one of the areas I need to grow in, is dealing with these darker subjects that, so often I would potentially want to avoid. I would say, no, just worry about kindness and laughter and, family and home and soul love. And sometimes I get into self-image, but see, then when suffering comes around and fear and, regret, Paramahansa Yogananda. That chapter on suffering is going to be a really good one, ladies and gentlemen, but we got quite a ways to go to that till we get to Yogananda. Boom. Wisdom of the ages, ladies and gentlemen, every single Wednesday. I love the last two, immortality and some good ones. The Herman Melville, talking about that insular Tahiti and how that flowed right into today's about regret and this wonderful poem about the maiden and the judge. Well, ladies and gentlemen, next week we're looking at Alfred, Lord Tennyson. And like I've said a few times already, it'll be about fear and risk-taking. I hope you got value. I hope you get value every one of these. And if you do, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed, smash the like button, and leave me a comment and let me know what you think. I also have this book linked below in the description if you'd like to get a copy for yourself to put on your shelf. You can also get one of these landscape paintings that you see in the background. I paint those right here, right in my living room, usually in my dad's garage actually, but they're a great price, and I got my Etsy shop linked below. I really appreciate everybody who supports, everybody who takes time out of their life to spend with me and Dr. Wayne Dyer, and all the wonderful authors and poets and mystics and sages like Herman Melville, and next week's Lord Tennyson, and today's John Whittier, and all of the good ones. Ralph Waldo Emerson, he's one of my favorites. Self-reliance is such a great topic. Self-reliance, ladies and gentlemen. But also Lao Tzu and wisdom of the ages. Anyways, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be back next week with more wisdom of the ages and more living the wisdom of the Tao, changing our thoughts, changing our life so that we can live a higher quality of life and hopefully have a positive impact on not only the rest of our lives, but the rest of the lives of those around us. So continue to seek to achieve and maintain happiness, ladies and gentlemen. Seek to achieve and discover the hidden wisdom of the ages. Seek to make happiness the way, because if we can begin to make happiness the way, then the destination will become irrelevant, because the whole way will be fantastic. All right. Love you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you next week.